an introduction into the black arts of plating and etching. You notice I do not say photo etching because there's no photo involved. This is a different kind of a process, and it's a different kind of a plating process too. And before we get any farther into this, I must emphasize that it's really going to be dangerous, expensive, bad, evil, difficult. I mean, this is really tough stuff. When we're done with this, you'll be shaken how tough it is. Probably the best way to start is to get into the really expensive, exotic, high-tech equipment that you need in order to do plating. We'll start with plating. And the first thing that you need is item number 1, which is the reverse spiral electron phasing temperature modification unit, which is RSEPTMU for short. You will also need the second item, which is a fused metallic twin receiver lidded containment vessel. The third item, the VPRS, is the vertical part restraint system. Number 4 is the horizontal part restraint system. And then last but not least, you're going to need C, which is for chemistry. And I will now reveal some of these really high-tech parts. The first one, which is the reverse spiral electron phasing temperature modification unit, is a Toastmaster buffet range. This one came from Walmart. I think my wife paid $15.95 for it. She doesn't use it anymore, so I appropriated it. Okay, that is the first part of plating. The second item, which was the the fused metallic twin receiver lidded containment vessel, is also an extraordinarily high-tech piece of equipment. A pot and cover.
Can you script this?
The next item that you need is the vertical and horizontal parts restraint systems. And in this case, it is a piece of plastic and some wires. And those go like that. And the final thing you need is you need the chemistry. And in the case of the chemistry, it's actually 2 little bottles. This is part A. There's also a part B. You get these 2 little bottles, and you get a jug of distilled water from the grocery store. And you add part A, and you add part B, and you stir it up, and you've got a half a gallon of this stuff, and you put it in an old bottle or milk jug or something like that, and it lasts for a very long time. Seriously, the way this all works is probably the simplest thing that you can possibly imagine. All of the nickel plating that is on the little Ferrari, the window frames, the exhaust pipes, the door handles, all of the trim on the hood, everything on it that is in bright finish was all done with this process. And this process is called electroless nickel plating, which is to say there is no electricity involved. And by the way, there are handouts, so you don't have to take notes if you don't want to take notes.
That's a good professor right there. They learned you well.
Electroless nickel plating, unlike electroplating, there's no electricity involved. There are no multiple baths. There aren't dangerous chemicals. There's nothing expensive to purchase. This is a process that's activated entirely by heat. And I demonstrated this at one of our club meetings, and everyone was utterly dumbfounded. And basically all it is you take this chemical bath, which is made up of 2 little bottles that you buy from a company that I'll give you their name and their website. Mix it up into it's a pale green transparent liquid. You pour the half gallon of it into the pot, You plug it in, turn the pot on, and bring it up to the point where the solution just begins to bubble, just beginning to boil, and then turn it down a little bit so that it is riding just below a boil, which is about 190 degrees. And that is all that is required in terms of the plating solution. But the most important part of doing the plating is the steps that you do before you put it into the bath. And the most important step is polishing the parts. And you've got to polish the parts probably beyond what you're used to polishing meaning. You really need to go and get your polishing kit, micro mesh or whatever it is that you use, and use every single step in it. You do not say, it looks pretty good, I'll start with 24, or whatever, or I'll start at 6, I'll do 600, 800, 1200. No. You start with 15, you go to 18, you go all the way down through the whole thing. At each step, examine it under a glass, and if there's a scratch left, go back and do it over again, because you have to have a part that looks literally like it's already been plated. So shiny, so free of defects that there's nothing on it, because when you plate it, it will magnify every flaw. If you have a tiny pit, a tiny scratch, a tiny mark, it will just show up. You'll hate it. It will look horrible. Yes?
Knowing nothing about this, can you plate plastic parts?
No. This is for ferrous metals, steel and iron, and copper and brass are the ones that you can plate with this method. Now, the people who sell the kit will tell you there are also ways that you can plate aluminum, and they claim there is a way that you can put a finish on non-metallic items. But frankly, it sounds like a whole lot of work, and I can't imagine that the results would be all that great for it. But you can read their literature on that. But back to where I was. Polishing. Yes, sir?
I was wondering if you had a part like a bumper that had some body work on it, and let's say part of it's in primer and part of it's in a little bit of putty, and we sanded that smooth to the to the highest grit, 16,000, whatever comes in the kit. Would that be okay if we plated?
No.
Does it have to be all primer?
Well, no. It has to be a metal object. It has to be brass, so plastic won't work. Now, the plastic stuff, of course, you can still send off and have vacuum metallized by Chrome Tech or one of those companies, and that's your best bet on plastic parts. Yes, sir?
What about solder?
Yes, it'll work right over solder. Most of the parts that are on the Ferrari have been soldered together. Like the windshield wipers are probably 6 or 8 parts, all soldered together, and it plates right over solder. It does a beautiful job right over solder, no problem at all. I just use solder that is, there are resin cores and there are acid cores. I use non-fluxed solder. So it's just the solid solder, and I apply resin separately. That way, I'm not sure that the solder might not contaminate the plating job if you used a lot of fluxes that were right in the solder, like some of the thick solder is. Yeah, Radio Shack sells the stuff that's almost like real thin, like 24th scale ignition wire stuff. It's so thin that's used for electronic soldering circuitry and all that. And that works real well. Yes, sir.
I will let you know that the flux that they sell, that you put on before you do your solder,
Right.
that stuff will not plate well to it at all. If you get too much on there, you're going to have to somehow get all that back off.
Oh, well, you have to, just like everything else, if you've got a solder joint, you've got to clean it and polish it so it is perfectly bright. So when you get done, you say, well, my wedding ring is shiny. Not even close. The bumper on my restored 57 Chevy is shiny. Not even close. I'm talking about shiny like the reflector on the inside of a headlight. That's the kind of shiny that you want. Perfectly flawless shine. Okay, when you achieve that, and you can do it using polishing cloths, then basically all you do is take the part, hang it on a wire. The wire has to be steel. So you buy galvanized steel wire at the home store, at Home Depot or something like that. wrap it around the part, you can solder it to the part, or if the part is a part that will hang on its own, you can make a little, little fence like that, hang the part over it. But the part must be in contact with ferrous metal in order to activate the process of electroless plating. So you can't hang it on a brass wire unless it's a steel part. A steel part will plate all on its own, but if it's brass, it has to be in contact with ferrous metal. So you can't hang it from a thread, you can't hang it from a string, you hang it from steel wire. Okay, so the part's suspended, you've got your pot going, it's just below a boil, steaming away. You take the stuff and lower it in and make sure it's completely submerged beneath the surface of the etching or the plating solution. The part will immediately start to look like it's an Alka-Seltzer tablet. It will fizz all over the surface of the part. Bubbles will just start welling up all over the surface of the part, and it will sit in the pot and fizz away. And in about 15 minutes, you will have built up 25, let's say a quarter of a mil, which is a quarter of 1/1000th of an inch thickness.
0.00025.
That's right. 1/4 of a mil. And that is plenty of plating for our purposes. 15 minutes in the soup, and I mean, it's the most dramatic thing you've ever seen. You'll reach over, you'll pull it out, and the parts will be utterly perfect. Bright, shining, absolutely nothing else required but to go and run them under the sink.
Is there a cure time or anything like that that you don't touch it or whatever?
Nope.
It's ready when it comes out.
I mean,
You gotta let it cool off.
and it is, that's right. It'll be hot. It'll be hot to the touch, but that is all that. I mean, but it's almost a darn miracle. I mean, it's the easiest thing you have ever done in your life. In 15 minutes, you can plate a part, and it will look, well, if the stuff on the Ferrari isn't good enough for you, then go and buy an electroplating thing and spend $1,000. But if that looks good enough to you, geez. Yes, sir.
Are you also saying like if you're like doing a windshield frame, that it all has to be soldered together? You see a super glue or something like that wouldn't work?
No, it has to be soldered together. The super glue will pop apart in that amount of heat.
That brings a great question. But how do you attach this chrome piece you made to your model?
Oh, well, I just, it's epoxied or super glued. Or, yeah.
Because you said the super glue pops right off, so I just want to know what heat.
Oh, no, the super glue pops off because of the heat of the bath. 190 degrees will make super glue just come apart.
Now, when you're making solder parts, like you say your windshield frame or something
Right.
like that, how are you like just when you're making that part? How do you assemble that with such multiple pieces? You solder.
Well, that's a whole nother discussion. But soldering parts together, you can use different grades of solder that have different melting temperatures. Really, the Wingrove books have got excellent sections in there about how to solder together parts and then subsequently solder on another part and then another part without having the first section melt. And it's not the world's easiest thing, but if you work with it, you can accomplish it. But so many parts are things that you might just make with a file, like you're making exhaust tips and make them out of brass tubing and cut them to length, polish them up, chrome plate them, and glue them on. I mean, there's actually, I'm saying chrome, it's not chrome, it's nickel. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about electroless nickel, its other uses. It's not new. I mean, this has been around for probably at least 50 years. They've been doing electroless nickel plating. And it's very much used in the jewelry, medical instruments, and firearms business. In fact, most firearms, when you see that they have a real high-tech matte silver finish on them, that is electroless nickel because it actually holds up better than chrome plating does. And it also has another advantage, which is kind of technical from our standpoint, but real electroplating puts hydrogen into the surface of the part, and it's called hydrogen embrittlement, and it makes a part fragile. And so a wheel rim on a race car, you rarely see them chromed. Well, it's because of hydrogen embrittlement. And electroless nickel doesn't do any of that stuff. It does not add anything to it. It doesn't have to be baked or annealed or any of those processes that have to be done with this. But it's a self-lubricating surface, so it's very slick and smooth. You can solder to it after you've plated. Solder will stick to it. Yes, sir?
Is there a need to scrape the plating to glue it?
No. No. Yes, sir?
Yeah, it's, you have to put any protective coating, will it tarnish or anything?
Nope.
Like that with time? Just
Nope.
You can actually polish them.
Yes, and
You mentioned the gun finish, which is a matte finish. If you wanted to replicate that,
steel wool the part before you plate it.
polish it all first, get all the decent chips out of it, then steel wool it, and it'll give you a matte.
The exhaust system on this car is all electroless nickel plated copper wire, thick copper wire. I steel wooled it all and then nickel plated it and then weathered it with inks to give it the burned look and so on. But you can get a beautiful matte finish. So you can make a part look like it is stainless or cast aluminum just by the way you treat it before it goes into the bath. So if you were to stop with the 2400 cloth and leave a pattern of fine scratches on it, oh, it'll look great. It'll look like a piece of drawn tubing, stainless steel tubing.
Because like the back of model and the emergency brake, the chips are handled, they're actually butler finish, they call them, which I guess would be very similar to what that.
Oh, you can put different finishes on different parts of a part too. Like you could have part of it be matte finished and then brightly polished part of it and leave the rest of it matte or something like that. Not a problem to do. Yes, sir.
Okay, I noticed the MSDS tag on there. How wicked is this stuff as far as the vapors coming out or, needing air around you? Or, yeah, exactly.
Well,
Other fish,
That neighbor's dog you had a problem with on these?
I wouldn't stand around with my face over the top of the pot as it cooks off. However, it is fully shippable, through the mails. It is not considered to be a hazardous material. They give you a method for disposing of it, which is crazy.
be aware of that.
Well, the way you dispose of it is they give you a steel wool pad, and you throw the steel wool pad in the pot, and it completely etches out all of the nickel onto the steel wool pad.
Shiny steel.
That's right. Throw it away, and you've got basically nothing left but distilled water after that.
While it's hot?
While it's hot, yeah. You plate it out. If you finally want to throw it away, you plate it out by putting a steel wool pad in it, and it just goes nuts, I guess.
If it can be plated out, obviously there's a limit to how many pieces. How many pieces can you get? Let's say you mix yourself up a half a gallon of solution.
A half a gallon of solution, they say, will plate 150 square inches
Well, that's a lot.
of stuff. So think about at
Like a window frame is what, eighth of a square inch?
eighth of a square, it's probably a fraction of that. I mean, it's just a fraction of that. So it has a tremendous amount of plating ability, and it has an incredible shelf life. I've mixed up a batch of this, and I've been using the same stuff without doing anything to it except, well, at the end of a plating session, you've evaporated some away. So I pour it back into the jug, but the original jug I drew a line around, so I knew how much was in it originally. Pour it back in there, and then I add distilled water till I come back up to the line, and then put it away and save it for the next time. I've been using the same plating bath for 2 years.
And you have not added parts A and B back, you just put distilled water back?
That's right, just
'Cause
add.
I've added some parts back.
Have you?
Yeah, just because I'm thinking, well.
They give it to you. They give you extra chemical that you can add, do the math, and figure out how much have I plated already, and they give you a formula for saying now add, because you've done that, add a quarter of an ounce of part C to add, more nickel to the bath. But
You store the excess room temperature?
oh yeah. I just store it in a milk jug, just a plastic milk jug with a big skull and crossbones on it, so nobody makes any mistakes about what it is. But and now here's the best news of the whole deal. Okay, There is this company that sells it in a kit. The company's called Caswell's. It's on the sheet. Caswell's sells you everything except the hot plate. They give you the pot. They give you the lid. They give you all the chemicals. They give you, and the instructions, and it costs $59. So for $59, you're plating. You are plating, and I mean, Augie electroplates. Augie looked at this stuff and said, "How hard was that to do?" And it's like, it looks pretty much like electroplating to me. And you
I saw
can.
Bill's work. I was blown away by it. I ordered this kit. I built some steps for a truck out of brass. I polished them. I dropped them in there, and it's exactly like you say. It comes out shinier than that picture, and you're holding it going, I don't believe it. You drop it in there for 15 minutes, or you can leave it in there longer. There's low
Oh, yeah.
If you want it really super thick chrome, and you think, hey, it's going to be shinier, it'll give you the formula and tell you how long to leave it in there. And just a word of caution, though, don't grab your wife's pots thinking, well, I'll do a shallow pot. And
Oh,
do a
no, no,
small
no.
part. You have to use their pot because it's been coated. If you
enamel.
try
It's enamel, that's right.
pot, it doesn't have that coating, you're going to have a
Well,
wonderful chemical reaction
well,
in the kitchen.
and or if you use, for instance, a stainless steel pot, you'll just plate the inside of the pot is what you'll do. And you'll wonder why your solution wore out so quickly, and but the inside of the pot will look great.
When
Yeah,
you put your pot out on the table for competition, we'll admire the quality.
that's right. You'll have the most beautiful chrome-plated pot. Actually, Pyrex would probably be if you wanted to use your own vessel and said, I want something shorter or something like that, Pyrex would work great.
Does it only work with brass?
It works great with copper. You can also do nickel silver, although almost nobody has any nickel silver they'd like to plate. But if you had nickel silver, you can plate it. It works wonderful, and in fact, it works the very best on iron and steel. So for instance, if you wanted to make something and you took out carpenter's nail and filed it and all that, oh man, it plates beautifully on iron and steel, because that's what it's originally designed to plate, it was designed to plate iron and steel. And that's why, though, you have to use the steel wire. It starts the reaction going when it's in contact with your part.
Photo etch, it will
Oh.
photo etch wonderful. But once again, it goes back to, you've got to get your photo etch looking really sweet. And in fact, you'll get it to the point where I don't want to plate it. But you can. Just like painting, anything in the substructure that you haven't sanded away is going to shine through on a black paint job. Just treat it that way. Your photo etch has to be perfect. Once you dip it in there, I did an Impala, and the stuff comes out gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Well, that's sort of a good segue to making your own parts too, because you can, for instance, go out and make a bunch of brass parts, brass being probably the easiest metal. Yes, sir?
Yeah, no question. Let's say I had a die-cast body with the molded in trim on it.
Yeah.
Would I be able to mask off the body and then dip the whole body in there and chrome the grip rails?
I can imagine you could do it. It might be real hard, but you could try it. The masking portion of it is a good question. If you can put something on it that will mask it, that will withstand nearly boiling temperatures and not flake off, then you could probably do it. But
I don't know if this might help out. I haven't really tried it, but Eastwood makes some high temperature tape. I don't know how thick it would be and how friendly it would be for doing his application. But Eastwood makes some high temperature tape that goes up to over 500 degrees that they use for their powder coating. It's just,
I don't know if it's liquid or water resistant though, that they.
I don't know.
well,
But I mean,
that might work. That might work. But
at this point,
sir.
you call Eastwood.
How about like in the case of the die-cast body, if you remove the paint from the trim, but not from the rest of the die-cast body, and then after the plating of the trim, remove the paint?
Well, here's the only thing, though, is most die-cast cars are, I believe, made of zinc. And I don't think zinc is one of the metals that will plate with this. It really, I mean, brass, copper, iron, steel, nickel, silver, I think are really the only ones that I can assure you will plate beautifully. And you might get some other stuff to plate, but you might not too. Sir?
Yeah, and in industrial electroless nickel, they use silicone RTV and paint it on when they want to mask.
Ah, there you go. There you go. That makes sense. Yes, sir?
Did you ever have a problem with the wire touches your piece and it not plating where the wire touched the piece?
Yeah, and you got to be real careful about that one. I mean, if you've got a beautifully polished piece and you wrap 6 wraps of wire around it, the spot where it's wrapped may have a different look to it that isn't going to be pleasing. So I have on some parts where it's really critical and I've got no good spots, I'll solder a wire to it so that it hangs by a wire, you know, that it's permanently attached to, and that works real well also. But you can, if you don't get a finish that's absolutely pleasing to you, you can polish afterwards. Electroless nickel is really, really hard. So it's not like it's easy to polish it, but you can go back at it with the polishing cloths, you know. Go in there with maybe a 4000 and start working on it, and you can bring up the shine a little bit more if it isn't quite up to what you had hoped it would be. But if you beautifully polish it beforehand, you'll be knocked dead when you pull the part out of there. It will look fabulous.
Bill, if you always find mesh brass screens, would it plug them up, or would
Oh no, it'll plate them. It'll plate it so beautifully. Unbelievable. In fact, you could go and you'll see some of these photo etch pieces that the aircraft people have, where it's just unbelievable spider web of detail, so finely done in brass. You could take that whole sheet and pop it right in, and it'd just plate that unbelievably beautifully. The other thing about it is it plates every surface 1 micron at a time all the way around. It doesn't build up on some surfaces quicker
It's not like chrome where you put a chrome wheel and you got to be really careful how you mount the chrome wheel.
No, because you've got a flow of electrons that are pulling from the anode to the cathode and all that stuff, and it'll build up and it'll spike and all that stuff. None of that. This puts a lattice work on that is dead even, perfectly all the way around. In fact, in industry, they use this if they've got a part that's undersized. They can chrome plate this, nickel plate this up, and correct its size so that it'll fit.
And that's how I do my parts. I measure .00025 smaller, and then.
Yeah, sure.
I want flexibility.
You can bend the parts pretty much. I have had parts that I have plated where it was like, after plating, it was like, the windshield frame doesn't quite fit. I gotta, and so you can force it a little, and it won't pop off.
You got drastic bends in a
Oh, if it was drastically bent, you want to bend it up first, yeah, because if you bend it too much, you're going to mess up the surface some. Yeah, I would definitely do that. Build the part up and then dip it and plate it. But let me move on to photo etching for a moment. Oh, etching, not photo etching. Let me move on to etching for a minute, because many of the parts that you would make by etching are just perfect to pop them right into the bath and plate them afterwards. And once again, here we go with the really, really high-tech equipment. This one, I was so amazed when I walked into my hotel room and found that at this hotel, they actually supply one of these high-tech devices in every room. It was a revelation. I was stunned.
So he stole it?
There it is. This is the this is the key. This is once again one of those electron phase converting temperature modification devices. That's right. In fact, you will probably find out you have one of these at home. You may not know it, but you do. This process almost eclipses the nickel plating in terms of how ridiculously easy it is. All you've got to do to make your own wonderful parts at home is if you can draw it, you can make it. And that's the end of it. I mean, if you can draw a picture of it, yes, there's a handout on this too. If you can draw a picture of it, you can make it. Now, the best way to draw a picture of it, though, is to draw a picture on your computer, just because it draws better pictures than I do. It draws straighter lines. It does better work than I do. So using a drawing program, any drawing program will work, whatever came with your computer. If you've got something from Corel, if you've got a Macintosh program, if you've got a fancy graphics program, it doesn't make any difference. All of them work equally well. But you have to understand how to make the artwork. But you draw a picture. Let's just step away from that for a moment. You've drawn the beautiful picture, the picture of what your item is to look like. And let's just say this is it. The top picture is what you've drawn. I always draw them 4 times size, 4 times the size of the item that I want it to be. And then when I print it out, it prints out small. This is also a handout. You'll get this. As you can see in the artwork, it doesn't look like what you might think it would look like. It's all done in reverse. The white areas will be etched away. The black areas will remain. And so when this goes into the bath, what will happen is there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, rows of little parts that all drop free, each one of them having all of these little cuts in them. And what those parts are, there's a bunch of them inside this box. In fact, there's a bunch of photo etched parts that I made using this method, rattling around in there, and you can just kind of look at them. What those are the cowl vents for a 427 Cobra Roadster. You know those little vents on the side of the body? These guys right here, you fold the little pieces out, they pop right in there, and they're the perfect little cowl vents. But, I'm sorry? Will I sell those? You can make your own. You'll be shocked how easy. Now, so you've made this drawing. You've got the beautiful drawing you've made on your computer, and you've figured all of that out and got the drawing done. The next part is the part that involves the electromagnetic device, and that is you then take that image and you print it out first. You print it out onto this wonderful material, and here's a section of it that's called Press and Peel Blue. And it is a product that was developed for the photo circuit board industry, for guys who want to make circuit boards at home. And it's a plastic sheet with this blue stuff on the front of it. I have no idea what it is, but it's kind of a plasticky, feeling stuff. Space age material, that's right. Probably contains carbon fiber and titanium, who knows. You print your image right on to that material.
Do you need to use a laser?
Yes, and there it is. Items printed onto it. Now, you have to use a printer that uses toner, because toner is, amongst a lot of other nasty stuff, it is ground styrene plastic. And the laser actually melts the styrene, and that's what the image is on the page.
So if you were drawing something, how do you get it on that?
You can go to the copy center, and the copy machine will copy it onto this sheet just exactly the same way, because a copying machine is just like a laser printer. It is a laser printer.
Never had any trouble with that stuff gunking up the printer?
No. No.
It's Kinko's, who cares? I got 15 of them.
But I run this through. I have a Hewlett Packard laser printer, home style laser printer. It was a fair, as home style printers go, it was more expensive than most. It wasn't $150. It was $500 or something. But it will print the images just beautifully. Okay, so there you've got the image. It is on the sheet. It's on there with a toner type printer. And then all you do is take that sheet, place it face down on the piece of material that you're going to etch, which is probably K&S brass shim stock that comes out of the little rack there at the hobby store. And you take the high-tech device and you iron it on.
So the shiny side is up? and the dull
Shiny side is up, the dull side that has the image on it is down, and you iron, 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 and as you do, you'll look at the back of it, and you can sort of see the image through the back right now. As you iron it, the image becomes very distinct from the back side. And when it looks really, you'll be able to tell it's really stuck on there. You've been ironing for between 60 and 90 seconds, and it's really stuck on there. And then
You're saying the brass is stuck to that?
yes,
Okay.
the brass is on the countertop.
Okay.
The blue sheet is on top. You iron, iron, iron. It's all stuck together. You let it cool to the point where you can pick it up, and you peel it back.
Your iron was on high or? medium?
Iron is on probably 5, about halfway setting.
Does the brass you put on these be really shiny polished too?
You should get the brass good and clean, but it doesn't have to be like super polished or anything. In fact, it probably shouldn't be super polished. It should have some tooth to it. So like steel wooled would be good. And this stuff will stick very nicely to it. You peel it up, and all of the black image plus the blue backing will be stuck to the plate. And then all you have to do is mask the back side of the plate, because you don't want to etch from both the front and the back. So you put some packaging tape, clear packaging tape, sealed down, covering the whole back side of the brass piece. Trim it all off nicely. And once again, you need one of these high-tech devices, a pot, an enamel pot, or a Pyrex dish. I use a Pyrex dish. And you have to put it into the etchant solution. The etchant solution is called ferric chloride. You can buy it at Radio Shack. They sell it in bottles that probably have got 16 or 18 ounces in them for about $5.95, I believe it is. It is nasty stuff. It smells bad. It is highly corrosive. It will stain anything it touches forever. Your clothes, the countertops, the floor. Your fingers will look like you're a lifelong tobacco smoker. They'll turn all yellow, but it will come off your fingers eventually. But you don't want to get it on your clothes. You don't want to get it in your eyes. Do wear safety glasses when you're doing this. But it is not corrosive to the degree that if you stuck your hand in and pulled it out, you'd be going, ah! No, nah. It's basically, you won't even feel it. I've gotten it all over my hands before. Just go wash your hands, in a reasonable period of time. Yes, sir?
Okay, you're talking about using brass as the metal. What about a silver-colored metal? What would you use?
Nickel silver is the metal that everyone loves to use the most. And if you can find a source of nickel silver, good luck. It's really hard to find. But there are places, if you go on the internet, there are some people, I have managed to buy some occasionally, sheet nickel silver. However, because you have the ability to plate now, though, you can avoid all of that by just going ahead and making your part out of easy to find and cheap brass, 15 thousandths being probably the most acceptable thickness, and making your part, etching your part, and then plating it. But okay, we were just about to put it into the soup, into the ferric chloride. You've poured your Pyrex dish full of ferric chloride. Put it on your hot plate. Warm it up, not hot, not to a boil. You don't want the fumes of ferric chloride coming off into the room. But get it warm. Get it maybe 90 or 100 or 120 degrees, something where it's considerably warm. And then take your sheet of brass that has got your press and peel blue stuck to the front of it, and into the soup it goes. And somewhere between, depending upon how hot it is and how much time you want to spend there agitating it and so on, agitation and heat make the process go faster. I always take an old piece of sprue and cut the sprue so I've got an L-shaped piece of plastic, and glue it to the back of the piece of brass with CA glue, and then I've got a little handle, and then I can put it down inside the soup and let it sit there in the ferric chloride, and I can pick it up and look at it. Put it back, pick it up and look at it. Or you can agitate it using that, like a spoon, in the relatively hot ferric chloride. between 15 minutes to maybe as long as an hour it'll take to etch all the way through. And you'll be able to see it. Pick up, oh my gosh, it's etching through. You'll be able to see it. And with the clear backing, when it etches all the way through, you'll pick it up and the light will come shining right through the holes at you and you'll know you're done.
Stuff will roll around in a pot too.
Beg your pardon?
And then you won't have little parts floating around.
Well, they're all stuck to the piece of tape on the back, see, so they're not going anywhere.
That's where the tape works.
That's right. The tape does two things for you. It keeps it from etching through from the back, and it also holds everything in place. And so when you pull it out, there it is. It's a finished piece. It looks beautiful.
Can I go
Rinse?
back into the chroming solution? With that same piece of tape, you go right after this?
Well, I don't think you'd want to. I don't think you'd want to because that way you'd end up plating only one side of it. And so what you then do is take your parts out, run them under the sink, or perhaps have another container of water thereby, so you don't have to go and put it in the sink. Which this is the stuff that if you've got a basement, do it in the basement. Don't ever take it upstairs. Don't get in trouble. Don't court disaster by taking this stuff into your wife's kitchen. I mean, I know one guy who claims he does it on the stove, that he puts a pot on the stove and does it, and it's like, but he lives alone.
It's equivalent to a basement.
Oh, baby, let me tell you, if you drip this on the kitchen cabinets or on the countertop, it will stain it forever. I mean, and I have got so many shirts and jeans that have got rusty brown spots on them where I dripped ferric chloride on them, and it's never coming out. So don't make that mistake. But, yes, sir.
Have you found certain tapes that work better when you say you're using packing tape on the back? Have you found a couple that didn't hold up?
Actually, the very best thing to use for it is in the model airplane hobby section. They sell that monocoat stuff, and it's in squares. That stuff works really good, really good. Yeah, the trim sheets, and they sell it in different colors and all that. But pick a color so that when when you look at this piece and it's in the soup, I mean, it really looks dark. The whole surface of your piece of brass will be very dark. So pick a color that when you pick it up, you can see when it's etched through. So white would be good, or orange would be good. Clear is my favorite, but don't use black, because if you use black, you'll never be able to tell you've etched through. You'll pick it up and you say, I wonder if it's through yet. You'll have no idea because you won't be able to see. Yes, sir.
Have you used any type of, like, is it what it's called, or you use like a registration mark and do an actual double cut?
Well, I've thought a lot about it. I'm sure it's possible to do, and maybe someone in this room will be the first one to do it. I mean, I know you could take that image and take this image, have two of them printed, get them across a bright light, get them lined up, tape the edges, slip the piece of brass in between the two, iron from one side, iron from the other side. It might work great. I've just never found it necessary. Well, you've seen the parts that are in the box. Okay, all of those were etched only from one side, and it works fine. It just...
I'm thinking on that note, maybe if you print it out of your printer, what the things that are 100% black will etch through, how about if you printed maybe 50% gray or 30% gray? That will etch at a different rate as the black stuff.
I don't think.
I don't think...
You would, like in conventional photo etching and stuff, you actually would do two separate dunks in the tank.
That's right. And that would be the way you'd have to do this too.
You want everything etched away.
This method is really only appropriate for etching 100% through.
Well, what would you do with the second one? You overlay it with a registration mark that was set up on the original artwork. Both pieces would have the same original registration mark.
Right.
Set it on top, and then go ahead and dip it again, but you would reduce the amount of time that would be in the etching this time.
Well, the thing I would say to you is the accuracy and the complexity of the work that can be done by true photo etching, because this is, I mean, maybe we'll call this computer etching, or maybe this is a home iron etching or something like that, but it is not a photographic process, and the accuracy that you can achieve through the photographic process. And that was the way I first photo etched. I went and bought the actual resists from 3M, and light sensitive and safe lights and in the dark room, and go to a place that does graphic arts and have them make you film right reading emulsion down film and put it in contact and glass on top of it and expose it with ultraviolet light and bake the resist and blah 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 blah. And it was so difficult and time consuming. I made some parts, but I said, Jesus, this is just yikes, it's way too tough, way too tough. I mean, this is so easy. I mean, it's just, if you can use an iron, you can do this. So the long and the short of this is, if you can use an iron and you can boil water.
What is it with this, man? You're trying to teach us how to boil water. You're trying to teach us how to.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Who do you work for?
And when you get done with this, you can move on to spaghetti.
Spaghetti tastes funny, chrome spaghetti. It's chrome plated, man.
Yeah, that's true. So that's it, guys. That's basically it. What else can I tell you about this? The Corvair is brimming with photo-etched parts that I made using this method. All of the grill work in the front and the back, the hood, the trim on the inside door panels, the steering wheel, the brake discs, the drilled brake discs I photo-etched, the pedals are photo-etched. There's just absolutely no limit to what you can make. Yes, sir?
I have a question. I have a need to make a 63 T-Bird grill, okay, and it's significantly different than the 62 in that it's kind of it almost looks like your picture you held up earlier, except it's a little bit curved. How would you suggest I get the pattern off of that grill? Because I have some of the AMT 63 grills. Do you have any suggestions there?
Well, the creation of artwork that's probably the only, how well you can draw the picture does determine what your final product ends up like. And my suggestion to you is to sit down with, some programs will allow you to import a scanned item into them and then work on it and refine it. That might be one way to do it, but that becomes more of a question of understanding and using computer software, and that's something way beyond the scope of our discussion today. But I sit there, frankly, with when I've got to making the vents for the side of the Cobra. I sit in front of the computer, I've got my dial caliper in one hand, I've got the model in the other hand, I measure the width of the part, I set the computer so that the computer will show the actual size of the drawing, and as I bump the line out a little bit farther, it says it's, 0.08, it's 0.09, it's, until I get it to the exact, measurements. And then, of course, I quadruple the size, take it up 4 times, set it so the screen shows 4 times size, and draw everything big then, and shrink it back down. But it's
A lot of it's going to depend on your software, because some of your softwares that are out there, when you say, scale this 4 times larger than the size I drew it to, it really don't do it 4 times larger. Then you also have the problem of what you see is what you get. It's not necessarily what it prints out.
very true.
So you have to.
There's some experimentation involved in this, that's for sure. In the drawing of the art, there's some real experimentation.
I swapped some off of a model. I take a piece of 33 Cadillac, a piece of carbon paper, laid it over the grill,
Huh.
face up, put paper over it, rubbed it with my finger, put it in a copy machine, scanned it, it came out really crummy. But the detail was all there, but it wasn't crisp. Then I went back with whiteout and 5/1000 marker. You blow it up big to work on it. You work on it at a big size where you can take a straight edge and then you have all your proportions, shrink it back down. Then you have
Oh, well, listen, you can do, I've seen people do unbelievable things on copy machines where they have taken the real part and laid it on a copy machine. Copy it one time, it's this bizarre looking mess. Work on it, work on it, work on it, and then finally when they get it looking really pretty darn good, start generation, like most copy machines will take it down 50%, they take it down 50. And then they take it down 50 more, and they take it down 50 more, until they're edging in on the right size, and then they start fine-tuning it. And things like that can produce amazing results, because if you work big, oh boy, it gets real crisp and neat when it gets down to that big, you know.
Well, that's how I stole it. I just took a piece of carbon paper, laid it inked up, and put paper over, rubbed it with my finger, and
Have you heard of anybody using an ounce printer to do that?
I'm sorry?
Have you heard of anybody using an ounce printer? You know, that'll work.
You mean to go ahead and produce the resist and eliminate the step of
I don't think the ink on an Alps would work.
you know, it could work.
I have an Alps. I don't
You do?
I don't
Okay.
think it can work.
Yeah.
It's a wax-based ink, but a toner is a plastic, and you need that plastic in the toner, I'm pretty sure.
It's worth experimenting with, probably. I mean, I know one thing I'll tell you for sure is that a Sharpie pen is a perfect resist. You can draw with a Sharpie on a piece of brass, throw it in the etch it, and take it back out. And anywhere you drew with a Sharpie, it'll be there. So you can use a Sharpie to touch up a pattern. Like if a piece chips off or looks bad or something, you can go in there and just fill it right in with a Sharpie, and it works just fine. So
The laser printer, how do you remove the stuff? What's the best way?
to remove what? The resist at the end of the process that's still stuck to it? Lacquer thinner. Yeah, so you just take a wadded up tissue with some lacquer thinner on it and just wipe the top of it, and it just comes off instantly.
Same way you get those photo etch parts or the etching parts from the manufacturer.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah.
thinner,
Yep.
release them.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Bill, you mentioned before you were using around 15 thousandths thick scotch.
Yes.
What would you think the limits would be? Go a little thinner or a little thicker than that? What would-
Well, thinner, as thin as you want to go, right down to the kind of industrial shim stock that's like a sheet of paper, you know, that you can rattle like that. Oh, that stuff photo etches unbelievably. I mean, you could make the most realistic, I don't know, tarp for, you know, a tonneau cover or something out of really thin stuff. And I have etched much thicker. I've etched 30 thousandths. I've etched, I mean, the only thing about it is it can take an awfully long time.
Do you still get a fairly distinct sharp edge when you etch with the thicker?
Well, no, because what you get is, you know, here, there's the piece of brass, just blown up a few times. Okay, here is the resist that is stuck to the top of it. Okay, as you start to etch, initially it does this. You know, there it is etching downward. You know, there's the next piece of resist, okay? But as it continues to etch, it starts to do this. And the longer it stays in the bath, the more it undercuts. And so what you're going to end up with is a piece that's shaped like that. Now, all of the parts that I passed around are shaped like that. I mean, if you take a strong magnifying glass, you'll see that they're keystone downward. But, hey, it's only 15 thousandths. You know, I mean, really, does that make a big difference? Now, if you're going with a thicker piece, well, yeah, it could start to be a problem. And because it takes so much longer to etch it, the longer it's in the bath, the more of an effect that's going to have. And you could have a piece that looks pretty nice from the other one side, but when you turn it over, the edges look kind of rough, and you'll need to dress the edges. But that's not a problem, dressing the edges with some 220 sandpaper, you know, before you use them. You might want to do that anyway. But all my secrets are revealed. You know it all now. Yes, sir.
Could you copy an existing photo etch onto a piece of paper and then reproduce that again?
Sure.
Save money.
Oh yeah. Sure. Sure. In fact, you could take a piece of existing photo etch and probably lay it on the top of a photocopier and photocopy it, you know, and because the light will go through the open parts, it would probably work extremely well.
As long as it's one-dimensional. It's not
Yes.
double step.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No double steps, no undercuts, none of that
Those
stuff.
Gunsy wheels?
Mm-hmm.
Those aren't those, but they come with those wire wheels.
Yes.
But the non-high-tech kit comes with enough stuff if you had the photo etch plate to make another set of wheels.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh.
if you just copy that, then you have it.
Well, I must admit that I was bad, and I took their sheet of a photo etch before I ever popped anything out of it, and didn't make a copy of it just because the wire wheel stuff was so nice. It was like,
And the less expensive kit comes with the ribbons. and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
artwork's done, go to the copier.
just don't tell anybody you did it.
You're not hearing it from me, he says.
But
You got handouts for us?
yes, I do. There are 3 different handouts here. There's one that is all you ever wanted to know about nickel plating at home. And I'll start that group around here. Take one and pass them on. And then,
What color did you use on your Ferrari?
beg your pardon?
What color on your Ferrari?
Red. No, it is called a flame red. It's a flame red from oh gosh, what is the name of the darn company? Createx. Createx Flame
They
Red.
had a very similar to this, one they called Russo Red, which was Ferrari color.
Yeah. And this last page just shows an example of the artwork that I was showing to you before.